The following is a special presentation of the Decibel Geek Podcast. This is the Decibel Geek Podcast with Aaron Camaro and Chris Sinzak.
All right, folks, welcome back once again. It's KISSmas in July. That's right, you're listening to the Decibel Geek Podcast. I'm Aaron Camaro, joined as always by Chris Sinzak.
Merry KISSmas, how are you?
Merry KISSmas to you, my friend. Hey, I got to tell you, your neighborhood is very festive for KISSmas in July. They're out there celebrating right now with pyrotechnics.
I know I saw a guy running around with an ink makeup on his face. Wait, that actually was Vinny.
Uh-oh.
Maybe it was.
This is a guy with the sparklers.
Yeah, but they look like pistols, but I don't know. Anyway, speaking of KISSmas, and this didn't happen at KISSmas in July last year, but we did a KISS-related episode a few months ago. It was called GPS KISS Landmarks, and we had a special guest author named Chris Epting, and who is as big of a KISS nerd as we are, and has actually talked to the members of the band. And the show just got a huge response from people. You know, KISS fans really, really came out of the woodwork and said, I really like the concept of what you guys did with this, where you discussed the locations and your memories of what happened at those locations. So after that response, we had said, even back then, we were like, we need to do a part two with Chris for KISSmas.
Even if what we did in the first one was really good, but even at that, I went back and listened to it because I knew we were going to be talking to Chris again. Mm-hmm. And, I was kind of blown away by how much fun it was, because it's fun for me to go back and listen to some of the old episodes once in a while. Yeah. And that was a really, really good one.
It was.
Pat all three of us on the back.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And and Chris is joining us tonight, and Chris is now actually the host of his own show. It's a great show it's just simply called Music, and it's on webtalkradio.net. And Chris Epting, without further ado, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, thank you for having me back. It was a lot of fun the first time, and I'm glad we've got this second one set up. I think people are really going to enjoy this.
Yeah, and so let's go off with a pretty obvious one we missed first time. Aaron?
Yeah, I'm looking at this list, and I was like, how did we miss that? And I had to, like I said, go back and listen to the first episode we did. But we didn't even talk about Cobo Hall in part one.
Located at 1 Washington Boulevard, Detroit, Michigan. Although I guess technically not located there anymore because it recently was. It hasn't been torn down, but it's been shifted and changed with what it is.
Very different. How did we miss Cobo? I don't know.
It's crazy.
And if you're a casual fan and listening to this, I'm amazed. But if you are, KISS has a long history with Cobo Hall. Most famously, they sold out a 3-night stand in January '76, and this was before a live broke big, so it was really odd for a band like KISS to do that much.
You still got some energy left? You want to help us on this song? All right, then it's something we got to get. That old Detroit KISS rhythm section. Rock and roll, Detroit!
Blue collar connection was really powerful. Even when they were up there in Flint, Michigan, they had a great sort of relationship with that whole state, I think.
Yeah. Chris, do you have particular memories of your favorite things about the Cobo Hall shows?
Well, I mean, Cobo to me as a kid, it was always where the Detroit Pistons would play the Knicks. I was a Knicks fan, and so I always knew it as a basketball arena. But look, as a kid that bought, that copy of Kiss Alive right when it came out, just the word Cobo was always completely attached to that band, and you had the kids on the back cover with the, holding the banner up, and that shot of Cobo on the back cover of Alive, to me was really iconic. It just kind of sealed the deal that KISS would always have a very special relationship with that building, which a lot of bands don't have that, don't have a connection. Certain people, certain bands, will be closer to certain cities, but to have that kind of attachment to an arena and what it really means something to me is just one of the more special qualities about KISS, and I'm sure I never saw them at Cobo, but I think if I could have seen them any place, that's where it would have been, because you have to imagine the energy anytime they played there was a little bit more jacked than any place else in the country or the world.
Yeah,
you're right. I can't think of any other band that has a connection to a particular building like that. Like, when you think Cobo Hall, you think of KISS, and there's not too many other bands. Like, you think of Ozzy, you don't think of any particular place where he had his, big explosive, all of a sudden, bam, here we are, we're huge now kind of a thing like KISS had with Cobo Hall.
It was,
exactly. And I always thought that, as a kid, I thought the entire thing was done there. Then as time goes by and you learn about it, when you deconstruct that record, you realize there are other shows as well.
Yeah.
At that time, Frampton Comes Alive was obviously the other big double live album, which was recorded in a bunch of other places. But to me, when I hear that record, and I still play it today, it's all in Cobo. It's like the whole show I put in Cobo.
Yeah, you're not thinking it's a amalgamation of 3 different concerts.
Yeah.
And
it's
also
just like that with no overdubs. That's why I want to believe it.
Exactly. Well, and also the videos of them playing there. It's just people talk about Kiss having magic in that original lineup. Mm-hmm. If you watch those Cobo shows from that 3-night stand, that's where the magic is.
Right.
Your dog agrees.
Yes, my dog is actually a huge Kiss fan, and she's just echoing. She's actually excited about the next site coming up, which is one of my favorites. And I've been in this place present day, and it really is an interesting building if you want to set it up.
Which one are we talking about for number 2?
On Bagley Avenue in Detroit, the former site of the old
the Michigan Palace.
Palace.
Michigan loves Kiss.
Yeah. And, Michigan Palace is interesting. For people that have watched newer movies, the movie 8 Mile with Eminem, there's an interesting scene where they're doing like a rap battle and they're in this parking garage, but you see this really ornate dome ceiling over the parking garage. That's the Michigan Palace, or what's left of it. It's now a parking structure, and which I think it's still connected to an office building. But I read up on it earlier today, and it was like the ceiling and the outer shell was part of the whole structure, so they couldn't tear it down, so they just worked around it and kept it. But it's even cooler that they left it in place. Mm-hmm. So Chris, you've actually been to the site?
Yeah, I went in there when I was doing research for one of my books, and it's really cool because you say the ornate ceiling is still in place, and that's where the cover of Kiss Alive was shot, and I know some videos and things were done there as well. But there are obviously, I'm sure a lot of Kiss fans have seen the alternate angles and sort of alternate pictures taken that day on the stage there. And it's just really interesting to think about that's where that was. That it wasn't, at Cobo, it wasn't in some other live venue, that it was actually a staged shot. And as you say, Kiss has been in there a few times. And Cream Magazine's offices were there as well in Detroit. And of course the famous unmasked shots that came out later.
Yeah.
But I think that's an interesting spot too, because Cream just functioned in this small office building. Not even, it was like a 2-story thing, and that's where Kiss famously was shot in the parking lot. With some amazing before and afters, with the makeup and without the makeup. And there's some great writing from people who were there about how they transformed, how they came in just 4 long-haired guys, and then minutes later the whole building is abuzz with Kiss in there, and it's I think just one of those moments, because those were the pictures. Those are really it's the only real collection of shots with that makeup from that era.
So then the next slide on our list is the only street corner, not an actual building. I'm talking about the corner of 23rd and 8th in New York City. This is the famous Dress to Kill cover shot location, shot by Bob Gruen. All the members except Peter were wearing Bill Aucoin suits because none of them owned a suit. That's why Peter looked okay in the picture and the rest of them looked weird. And I read that Gene is wearing Bob Gruen's wife's clogs, but that may not be accurate. Is it true?
Yeah, Bob Gruen has told me that in great detail. I think it was a size thing, that they had similar size feet, and he also said these guys had nothing to speak of in the way of clothes. Everything was done on the fly. Everything was so slapdash that they grabbed whatever they could, and I believe he just said that they happened to fit, that he had the same size feet as his wife, and it worked out okay. But
those are some crazy looking shoes he's wearing on that album cover.
Yeah.
We'll go to number 4. We stay in the New York area. We go to 1255 Hempstead Turnpike in Uniondale. I'm talking about the Nassau Coliseum, which I know, Chris, you have to be totally familiar with the Nassau Coliseum.
Been there many times. I never saw Kiss there, but I went out there for plenty of other shows. I mean, I remember, though, when you noted here, they got their first Gold Album Awards for Alive in late 1975, right before going on stage with Blue Oyster Cult opening for them the year before, right?
Yeah. They Blue Oyster Cult
opened for Kiss, and then a year before Kiss had opened for them.
Right, that's what it is.
Right, so it took them a year to blow away Blue Oyster Cult.
They played here before Madison Square Garden, And it's a good size arena. It's probably 15,000 seat arena. So I mean, naturally, KISS had pretty good support in the tri-state area.
Yeah.
But it's a good KISS landmark. That's a big show right there, for them at that point in their career.
True.
And now, Deep Thoughts with Paul Stanley.
It's really great. It's kind of like being at a buffet where everything is laid out, and you don't have to take this or this or this, but it's all there to be eaten if you want it.
And so...
Hello, baby.
Hi, this is Dr. Love calling, and I've got the cure you're thinking of. It's the Decibel Geek Podcast.
Oh, yes.
Proud to be one of David Lee Roth's favorite podcasts.
Yeah.
He's always running to get the next episode.
Oh, God, I'm running. Oh, yeah.
He wouldn't lie to you.
God damn it, baby, no, I ain't lying to you. I'm only going to tell you one time. Oh, yeah.
So be like Diamond Dave and listen to the Decibel Geek Podcast.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Whoa, whoa.
I want to go to number 5 on the list. Is 3500 Sports Arena Boulevard in San Diego, and this is the site of the San Diego Sports Arena. It's called something else now.
A mystery here now with this one, huh?
Yeah, because this is widely known by people as the site of the gatefold photo inside of Alive 2.
That's what I always thought.
But I've heard an interview with Barry Levine who refutes this and says, no, that was shot at the Forum. So I don't know if his memory is wrong or if his memory is right. I'm pretty sure it was a staged photograph, though. I don't think it was an actual live shot.
No?
No, I'm pretty sure it was staged, and then a lot of the fireballs were added in later. So they did close to that on the finale of that tour, but it was embellished quite a bit. So I'm not really sure if it was the gatefold photo or not, but I thought it was worthy of attention on our list.
Absolutely. Well, look, both buildings still exist. The sports arena back then was used for basketball and stuff when the Clippers played down there. But now it's really just a concert hall, and it's used once in a while. The Forum in L.A. is actually a church. And again, occasionally it's rented out for concerts. KISS has deep history in both those buildings, obviously, especially the Forum. But I may look into that. I'm kind of curious myself.
Number 6 is kind of an odd choice on the list, but I had to include it. 254 West 54th Street in New York. This was the site of Studio 54, and some people are going to be like, why the hell are you talking about that? Well, there's a few KISS-related things. First, earliest, this is where Paul got the inspiration to write I Was Made for Loving You. Yeah. So you may hate this location. But also, this is also the site of the first time KISS ever played as a trio.
Oh, yeah.
When they actually lip-synced as a trio because Ace didn't show up for their lip-sync performance of I from Music from the Elder on the coverage of the San Remo Music Festival in Italy.
He was probably just passed out in one of the VIP rooms somewhere.
Do you remember them doing the Elder performance on TV?
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
I mean, I've seen it, but again, there was always a buzz when KISS would do something like that. The papers would always cover a KISS production or something. So you knew they were there. And again, you knew from reading like Rock Scene magazine and all these kind of great rags back then, that Paul was a fairly regular, hanger on there. And I think Peter and Ace, were too, because they lived in the city, moving out to Westchester. And I don't think Gene was as much a part of that scene, but the other guys were.
Number 7 on the list, I couldn't find a street address because I don't know Portugal addresses that well, but is Cascais Hall in Lisbon, Portugal. And in 1983, I believe this was the first show without makeup with the Eric Carr and Vinnie Vincent lineup of the band. And there's not a lot out there of this show. There's a little bit on Kissology of them doing the first 2 songs. And it's pretty interesting to look at because I remember hearing stories about when they were driving up to this arena. And this arena is like covered in vegetation and stuff. It was out in the middle of a jungle. And all the posters leading up to the arena had KISS and makeup on all the posters.
Oh, man.
So they were like, and then you can actually see it on the faces of some of the crowd on that Kissology footage. You have some people that are down the front row looking up like, who the fuck are these guys?
And where's Kiss?
You know, and then, so I mean, it's really interesting that some people are going crazy, and then there's others that are like, what is this?
That's kind of fun,
So-
like a test run in Portugal in the jungle where no one will see it.
Yeah, I mean, so Chris,
See how it
you've seen
goes.
that footage, haven't you?
Oh yeah, and that's such an interesting time in KISStory too. I mean, it really was a fork in the road for a lot of us, for a lot of people. You know, dealing with the whole MTV thing and you know them moving on like that. But I think there's definitely kind of the way a Broadway show will open out of town to kind of work the kinks out. I think that's why they probably went where they went. You know, to kind of play it quiet for a little bit.
Yeah, they really went far out of the way to start the tour. But I can understand that because they're probably. I have to imagine that especially Gene must have been really nervous leading up to that show. Because, I mean, he was used to being that character, and then all of a sudden, hey, here I am. What do I do? And Gene seemed a little lost during that period, but it was there's still a lot of energy, though, when you watch that footage. You know, they come out
Back
and
then
it's
with
Kiss.
Gene, it was like, no, look at my tongue. See, no, it is me. It's
is
me.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting period to look at, and you know, that's a lineup I wish that had continued on longer with the band and done more material. But things
I do
haven't.
too.
Yeah.
You know, it was. So you liked the Vinnie Vincent edition at the time?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was interesting, and I thought he seemed to fit at that point. I thought he was a good player, and you know, I didn't have the intense emotional reaction that some Kiss fans did. I was more about, you know, give the guy a chance.
Right. Yeah, he had a lot against him at that point. But
Oh, I know.
well, we're gonna go back to New York for the next pick, and I couldn't find a straight address for this either, and I looked hard, but. Buffalo, New York, at least at the time in the 70s, was home of the Marvel printing plant. And this is where Kiss flew to, yes, in a plane, to the printing plant to dump their blood in the red ink.
So that it could get into the comic book.
To the comic book. And, Chris, do you know what happened to the red ink?
Well, I know I had one of those comic books. I mean, what do you mean what happened to it? I know they dumped their blood in. It was a great media day. I'm actually looking. I think I have that address here. But I remember, I mean, that was a huge news story when it happened. It was so outrageous, you know, the way the press reacted to it, that I remember that night. If you'd flip around and on each news station, it showed Kiss, you know, at the plant, you know, dumping it. It was a little vial each that they dumped in. I still think that's one of the most brilliant marketing devices that any band's ever done ever. When you think about that, and you couldn't do it today.
Especially for its
course,
time.
but-
No, you couldn't do it today. There's too much, you know, phobia with blood nowadays.
Here, I have a note here. Their blood was extracted February 21st, 1977 at the Nassau Coliseum and kept under guarded refrigeration until May, when it was delivered to the Borden Ink Plant in Depew, New York, just outside of Buffalo. And yeah, they had a notary public there to, you know, officiate and make sure it was really Kiss blood. It was so well done and really kind of spoke to the dimension of the band, of what they were willing to do, and that they walked it like they talked it. And, you know, that every issue was guaranteed to have Kiss blood in it was brilliant. I mean, parents talked about that. Church leaders, you know, reviled against it. It was such a wonderful ploy to get people engaged, and only Kiss could get away with that. I'm convinced back then.
That's true.
It sold a lot of comics, but do you know the fact is that the blood did not wind up in the ink for the comic?
No. Wait, what do you mean?
I didn't know this either.
This is how deep my Kiss nerddom goes. The blood, it was a mix-up at the printing factory, and the blood that they poured the ink that they poured their blood into did not get used for the comic. It got used for the Sports Illustrated issue that came out that same week.
That's
Are you
crazy.
kidding?
No,
I never
I'm
knew
not.
that.
I'm not kidding. And if you have the Sports Illustrated issue that has Mark the Bird Fidrich from the Detroit Tigers on the cover, you have Kiss's blood.
So there's no Kiss blood in those comics?
No, I'm sorry to break your heart,
Yeah.
but it's true. The next one on the list is one that I don't think Aaron knew about. Number 9 is the Broome County Arena in Binghamton, New York. This was the site of the only full show that Mark St. John played with Kiss.
Yeah, I wasn't aware he only played one full show.
He did partial shows a couple of times
Right.
around that time, but this was the only time where he did from song 1 to the end on his own. And Chris, do you know anything about this arena?
I've been there. I mean, it's in central New York. It's considered kind of upstate, and I mean, everybody's played there. It's just sort of a spot where, you know, it's a stopping post for bands. It has been since the early 70s. It's a good mid-size arena. that everyone plays. I wasn't aware that was only a full show. Is there a complete record of that show someplace, an audio tape or something?
I think. Well, I don't know. Yeah, I think there is one. I don't have it, but I've heard pieces of it, and it's not the best of quality.
I wasn't aware of that. I know the building well, but I wasn't aware that was the only full show with him.
Were you at it?
No. I wish I could claim that, but that's pretty interesting that it's only one end-to-end concert.
Yeah, because there was a number that Bruce would do the first half and he would do the second half, or vice versa.
Yeah.
So I think he may have been still in pain.
I'll remember that. That's a good thing to tell somebody next time I visit.
Yeah. Chris, you're a California resident. I have to wonder if you were at this. Talking about 1000 Elysian Park Avenue in Los Angeles, better known as Dodger Stadium. This was the site of the Psycho Circus launch show on Halloween of 1998. Any memories of this, Chris?
I remember. You know what? I was actually out of town on work when this happened. I think I would have been at this show. And this was a big deal. This was a big show. And I had a friend who was actually there who knew somebody in the crew and spent the day during sound check. And he called me. This is, I'm thinking, this is almost, I think this predates like regular outer office email. So you had to call me in 1994. And Gene evidently got stuck, on one of his contraptions as he got lifted up. And he was really pissed off. And I remember my friend said it was one of the funniest things. This is a Kiss freak, but he said one of the funniest things he's ever seen in his life was everybody trying to deal with Gene and get him down safely and calm him down and get the rig working properly. But they had a huge issue with the rigs out there that day.
Yeah.
This show, but I remember it very well living here in California, and that's one I really wish I could have seen.
And it was almost like as close as we could get during reunion times to kind of the KISSteria stuff of the 70s, because they took over the Fox channel that week. Like they were on Millennium and Mad TV.
Oh, they were funny on Mad TV.
And they did. They broadcast the first couple of songs from the show. It was like, and they were also on FM radio with the Dodger Stadium show. So it's like I remember I watched part of Millennium, and then I drove to a friend's party for Halloween, and I listened to part of the Dodger Stadium show on the way. And then we watched it at the house, and it was like, this must be like what it kind of felt like during the 70s to have
98 was
saturation.
a good year. I said that before.
Yeah.
98, a lot was coming back, and you had a new crop of Kiss fans that, a lot of times are kids, and growing up, original Kiss fans had spawned new Kiss fans at that point. And that 98 period was really important because you had a lot of kids going to the shows all of a sudden that had never seen Kiss before in Makeup or Out. And there was a fervor at that time, and it's one of the most legitimate comebacks, I think, in music history. Of course, they did it right, they did it big, and it was just it was great. I mean, again, I loved the excitement that was in the air, especially that week. Like you said, I remember the Fox thing.
Yeah,
and this was just every place.
Yeah, it was huge. The Mad TV show was so funny.
That was hilarious.
My favorite part of it was the Kiss life-size action figure, the wind-up dolls.
Yeah.
Tired of those boring old action figures?
Your action figures are stupid.
Do other kids have better action figures that always beat up yours?
Die.
Well, it's time for action figures that mean business. Kiss action figures, each with authentic costumes, instruments, and lifelike hair. Pull the string. And they move around.
Action figure.
Pull the string again and they rock. Pull the string again and, well, let's just say they mean business.
Ooh.
You can rock and roll all day and then sleep tight with Kiss.
Good night, Kiss. Sweetie, can I borrow Paul Stanley till the morning? Oh, Mom, why do you always do this?
You'll understand when you're a little bit older. Now give them to me. Oopsie daisy, I got a little string pulling of my own to do, honey. Oh boy, this is gonna be fun. Sleep tight, sweetie. Oh, Daddy's on vacation.
Kiss action figures. Collect the whole band. Blood not included.
Doctors define modern rock disorder as a sudden, intense drop in musical taste affecting all facets of the victims' lives and the lives of those around them. Over 20 million Americans suffer. Do you? Is your newfound love of Axe body spray, leather wristbands, and mountains of hair care products driving those close to you crazy? Has your overwhelming desire to crank Nickelback, drink a sixer of Natty Ice, and yell at girls from the back of a pickup truck seriously impaired your work or social life? The Decibel Geek Podcast offers new hope. The Decibel Geek Podcast, the only podcast proven effective for MRD. The Decibel Geek Podcast corrects the chemical imbalance created by listening to bands like Theory of a Dead Man and Three Doors Down, so that with time and your hosts Chris and Aaron's help, you can move toward recovery. MRD hurts. The Decibel Geek Podcast can help. Visit www.decibelgeek.com to begin the road to recovery.
And now, Deep Thoughts with Gene Simmons.
Sometimes I wonder why in the hell that itsy-bitsy spider kept trying to climb up that damn water spout. Stupid-ass spiders. That's why they don't have spaceflight, or tacos, or gymnasiums, or huge books named Monster.
Want to be a member of the Decibel Geek Army?
You slimy scumbag, get on your face and give me 25.
Join us on our fan page at facebook.com/decibelgeek.
We love you long time.
Staying in California, number 12 is 8255 Sunset Boulevard in L.A.
Yeah.
The site of the Casablanca Records offices. The amount of debauchery that went on in this building is pretty high, and pun intended. And the stories that have come out, especially if you've read Larry Harris's book that he put out about his time at Casablanca. This was the ultimate in excess of 1970s. I mean, you had people taking cocaine orders, like you would take your takeout order for lunch.
Wow!
And it's just an amazing thing. Have you been by the side of the building?
Oh yeah, I know exactly where it is. And that era, Neil Bogart obviously led a lot of that, and anything went back then. And cocaine was still considered a fairly recreational drug at that point, so that wasn't considered addicting by a lot of people or addictive. And they were obviously one of the record companies that were sort of the renegades, that weren't a big conglomerate like Warner or anything like that. And KISS allowed them, KISS gave them a lifestyle. And once KISS Alive busted out, that essentially created that company in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. And are you excited about the Neil Bogart biopic that's coming out, that's being made?
Yeah, anything. I think he was a fascinating character, as was his wife, and the whole crew he had in place really was a unique setup, and obviously had a lot to do with early KISS and their success. It was very symbiotic, that relationship between band and label, where they really kind of grew together, and if they hadn't taken a shot on KISS the way they did, who knows how history would have been different.
Aaron, what's number 13 is a big side of a classic KISS appearance. What is that?
3000 West Alameda Avenue in Burbank, California.
Better known for the Midnight
Special taping. Yeah.
That's also, as you know, you may not know, that's the NBC building. That's where the Tonight Show is done every night.
Right. Yeah, but we're KISS fans, so it's more important because being the Midnight Special taping.
I know. And look,
the Tonight Show. What's that? We're talking about KISS.
A lot of shows have been done there, but the 1975 Midnight Special show with KISS, I think remains my favorite live KISS TV. I just think that was the band at its epitome. I watched those clips a lot, and for all the great TV they did back then, there's something about, especially the performance of Deuce on that.
Yep.
I think is just, if you ever want to teach somebody about KISS, I would show them that clip first.
I've done that.
I see that.
I've let that be the litmus test for people.
They are fire.
Yeah, they just slay that audience.
Right.
They just go crazy, and you can tell when they're playing live, obviously, and the crowd is kind of with it, but not really with it. Not trying to figure out, I think, what's going on. Mm-hmm. And KISS just goes for it. And I think they knew back then that every TV appearance had to be maximized. And you can see they push it for the big ones, on Don Kirshner, Midnight Special, in concert, whatever. You see them take it up a notch. On that one in particular, I think they swing for the fences, they connect. It's absolutely brilliant, just riveting television.
Oh, and Gene almost breaks his ankle on the first song. I don't know if you've seen that. His platform goes out from under him, and his ankle bends at a weird angle.
On Deuce?
Yeah. And it's it hurts to watch. He recovers quickly and is fine, but it looks like he breaks his freaking ankle. It's
I don't know if people can appreciate. If you watch Gene today, you go back and watch those clips.
Oh, it was nuts.
And I mean, Gene in particular, with what he was wearing on his feet, the kind of jumping and prancing he did in those things, I still marvel at the fact that he didn't go down more. I still really can't figure out why he doesn't, because he was he had a lot of moves back then, and a lot of energy.
Yeah.
It's very impressive to me because I think he always wore kind of the highest heels too. It seemed
he had better balance than Ace.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, exactly.
That guy's got trouble walking.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's a great TV appearance. Might be the best one they ever had.
Yeah,
and then
it's very cool.
Peter trashing his drums at the end of Black Diamond. I mean, it's
brilliant.
He was paying homage to Keith Moon with that. He had to have been. So we're gonna go from them struggling early on like that and fighting for everything they had. This is from 1980. You have to say this is the peak of their powers, probably on a worldwide level. 483 George Street in Sydney, Australia, the Sydney Town Hall, and any KISS fan that is worth his salt knows what I'm talking about. This is the outdoor appearance they made when they flew into Sydney and everyone was going insane, and they're on top of this balcony with the Lord Mayor of Sydney, and there's just people as far as you can see in every direction screaming underneath them. It's an iconic appearance, and I wish that footage of that whole appearance would actually show up because you only see little bits and pieces of it.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Right.
I would love to see the whole speech and everything that was made, and then Ace is hanging his legs over the balcony edge, and it's amazing to see how huge they were down there. It was just, and you read the stories and you hear the interviews about it. Somebody should do just purely a movie just about that one trip because it's
KISS in Australia.
It's just like Beatlemania. It really is.
Australia, yeah, it's amazing, and it still kind of resonates today. I think when they go back down there, there's still this real amazing love affair with that country and with KISS. But yeah, when they went down then, that was something that was interestingly, as it was kind of waning here a little bit.
Oh sure, yeah.
It really provided, I think, a jolt and how to remind them of the hysteria and the maniacal fans of a couple of years ago here.
Yeah, and Eric Carr is just a monster on his drums, during those shows, and it shows that as much as I love Peter, it showed that Eric really fit well with them at that time.
Absolutely.
And he was out to prove himself at that time, too.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure just like, every guitarist that's been in the band after Ace Frehley, Eric Carr probably really felt the heat, too, being the first person to replace one of the original members. That's a lot of pressure on a guy. So that means you got to go out and kick that much more ass to be able to say, I really liked Peter Criss, but, man, that new guy just kills it. So that's the way it had to be.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And he did it.
Well, we've got one more.
We got a couple
well,
more.
we got one more on my list, and then Chris has a couple
Yeah.
that he wants to mention that are
Very
obviously
cool.
worthy of mention because they have a nice personal meaning for him. This one has probably a personal meaning for every KISS fan on the planet.
Yeah.
Talking about 2121 Trumbull Street in Detroit, Michigan, better known as the former site now of Tiger Stadium in Detroit. And we all know what this is. This was
Heck yeah.
the location where it all came back together, and they kicked off the reunion tour. And
I wanted to go so
I
bad.
did too.
So bad.
And Chris, did you go?
I didn't, but it's funny. A lot of us KISS fans kind of measure on either side of that date because that was the day nobody ever thought would happen.
Right.
Yeah.
We were worried about how it was going to come off.
Yeah.
And the fact that it was so glorious and so celebrated and just so definitive was huge. And I think it validated what a lot of us who grew up with this band believed, that it was a concept that was universal, that could go on forever, that wasn't just some limited run thing in the 70s.
Right.
The way they did that, and it had a real class and dignity to it. I know that sounds kind of corny, but it was a big polished rock and roll show. And I think they proved to any other band on the planet, this is how it's done.
Yeah.
We're going to be serious about it. We're going to deliver 10 times the money's worth of whatever people pay. And we're going to celebrate not just the legacy of this band, but remind people this band has more history to occur. And I really think that you can trace this band's history, you can mark on either side of that date. Because if that didn't go well, we might not be talking today. You know what I mean? The whole thing could have crashed and burned if they weren't ready to play. And they were, and they did it. And they proved that it wasn't a fluke the first time around.
Yeah, it was the energy. Just watching footage of it on YouTube, you can still feel the energy in that in that location. And totally. And actually, there's a video on YouTube, and if I can remember, I will post the link to the video in the show notes for this episode because I want people to see it. Somebody posted a video, and it's a fan shot video from like the upper deck of the stadium. Because you've seen a lot of the pro stuff, and that's cool.
Sure. Yeah.
But this is shot from the upper deck in the middle of all the Kiss mania. And when that curtain goes down and they hit the stage, and you hear the just swell of applause, I mean, you get goosebumps watching it.
It is awesome.
It's actually like being there. And
if you get that link, I'd love to. I have not seen that. I would love to see that. That sounds really special.
I will send it to you. And it's just when that curtain drops and you hear that crowd just roar. I was just like, man, that would have been so fun to have been there, And I envy anyone who actually got to be in that audience.
Me too. And I'll tell you, when you go back there today, the stadium's gone.
Yeah.
There's barely a trace of it. It's an abandoned lot today. It's
awful.
really sad. Ton of baseball history, football history, but I'll tell you what, the KISStory on that site, man, it resonates. It's a very special spot. If you're ever in Detroit, it is worth wandering over to that field, seeing if there's a brick left on the ground, grabbing it if there is, and stopping and considering just what took place when that band came back.
Yeah.
Probably, I don't know, a month or two ago, as you probably know, Gene and Paul have invested in a series of restaurants called Rock and Brews.
Yeah.
And the one that opened in Torrance, I think in, I don't know, May, I was there for it, and the whole band showed up and played a short set. And I hung out with them before, and they had just, they were in Australia recently before that. And I was talking to Paul about that. Paul had just seen the Rolling Stones the night before as well, and we were talking about that, talked to Gene for a while, and then Gene goes, oh, wait a minute, Tommy and Eric are getting here. I got to run up, we're going to play 3 songs. And I said, you're kidding me. This was unannounced.
Wow.
Nope, we're gonna go try and get this together. So 5 minutes later, there they are, without their gear, without anything. Basically, there's a little stage on top of the bar, and it's like, here's Kiss as a bar band. You know, the place was packed. Gene and Paul did a wonderful job of wandering the place all night, meeting and greeting, and hanging out, and eating and drinking, and just being good guys. And then all of a sudden, 10 feet away from us, here's this bar band called Kiss.
That is too cool.
And they plugged in, and they had to work out again. It wasn't their gear or anything, but they kind of did it by the seat of their pants. And they did, I think, Lick It Up, Hotter Than Hell, and Rock and Roll All Night. And it was 3 of the best versions I've ever heard of those songs. And I've seen this band a number of times. It was so loose, and it was so much fun, and had great energy. The crowd played off of it. And I was like, you know what? Kiss, at the end of the day, for all the showmanship, for all the effects, for all the merchandising, Kiss is a rock and roll band. And Kiss can pick up gear, and they can blow your mind just by playing 3 songs like that. And it really hit me that night too, that you know what, this band is so much more than a lot of the critics think or will ever understand. You know, this is a band that can get your blood working by playing these little 3-chord gems we've all heard 1,000 times. But you know what? When they pick it up and play it right in front of your face, they don't need the makeup. They don't need the blood and the thunder and the fire. That's all great stuff. But at the end of it, it's just about playing music, and that's what this band does. And it's one of the best times I ever saw Kiss.
I love it.
I love it. You can't put it any better than that, can you? I mean, that's the ultimate way to describe what it's like to be a Kiss fan. But, you know, that's what I love about the band, you know, and we all have things we like and things we don't like. But, you know, you'll never have a band that people will be more passionate one way or the other than Kiss, you know. And like you say, and you mentioned how it does boil down to the music because, like as I mentioned earlier, probably the best show I remember was them playing a stripped-down set with no makeup, no pyro, nothing.
Right.
And it was awesome. and you seeing them in that setting at Rock and Brews, it's just awesome because those songs are timeless songs and they're part of our lives, So,
and it's neat to see them, without all the bombast, that you normally get out of a KISS show. It's a very unique treat that you guys got. So.
Well, it shows that they can deliver on both levels.
Right.
It's not just all a show. And as Paul said before, you can have horrible songs in a big show, but you're still left with horrible songs.
Right.
So, I think that's a perfect way to end it. And Chris, thanks for joining us. And
this has been very cool, like always, just like last time.
Yeah, and we'll have to get part 3 lined up for next year.
There are plenty of places to go around. I'm sure we'll get some good advice and suggestions from the great KISS fans out there.
All right. So everyone have a good week. And this is the Rock and Brews opening, and we'll see you next week.
Let's go, fellas. Every